Welcome to the Bad Roman Podcast. On this show, we talk with veterans, community leaders, Christians and non-Christians as we explore the entanglement of Christians with the state. The Bad Roman Project was created out of the firm belief that as Christians, we are called to follow Christ, not the state. Here is your host, Craig Harguess.
Hey folks, when we think about immigration, are we looking at it through the lens of Christ or through the lens of the state? When we consider borders, are we looking at it as a tool of Jesus or the state? And at the end of the day, are borders tyrannical or necessary? Today, Chris Polk comes on the show to discuss all of this and much more.
Let's go. Yeah. Left, right, left, right, left. We got our marching orders, man. Left, right. We'd rather serve God than serve Caesar, you feel me? Right. I'm just trying to live what he said.
Chris, welcome back to the Bad Roman Podcast.
Always a pleasure to talk to my favorite cat lady and salsa maker. So anytime I get the opportunity to talk to you, it's always good.
I appreciate the cat lady. I don't shy away from that, honestly. Some people might want to make fun of me, but I call myself a crazy cat lady all the time, and usually it's just for a chuckle, but I mean, it is what it is at this point.
If the shoe fits.
Yeah. Salsa maker and crazy cat lady. That's what I do these days. How you been? You rolled through Memphis here not too long ago, and you stayed a couple nights with me, and we got to visit.
I did. I got a little big for my britches, and we had an empty truck. I run a fleet of tractor trailers, and we had a truck sitting empty, and I thought, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump in one of these trucks and show everybody how it's done. Now, I hadn't been on the road in 4 years, and anybody that's listening, if you've not driven a truck in 4 years, please do not go from 0 to 3,000 miles a week. Because your body will hate you. And so I had to go to Fort Worth to do some training. And on the way back, I saw I had some time. So I got to stop in the den of the cats and hang out for a couple of nights and had a drink or two and lots of good conversations. So, yeah, I love being on the road. I'm a boy. I like trucks. I love traveling. I miss that part of it, but trying to run a fleet while driving one of them is a terrible, terrible plan.
Yeah, you seemed a little stressed out whenever I saw you. Maybe not too bad, but it was. You're right. We did have some really cool conversations, and I liked it when people pull through here and stop and visit, because it seems like Memphis seems to be a hub of people where people are traveling. Somehow you're going to make it through Memphis or near Memphis in some fashion. So yeah, it's always good to get to see you. It's the second time we've hung out, isn't it?
Yeah, I came down there to Elvis's place for a corporate event in 2022. I think we got to have breakfast then.
I remember that. I didn't get to go to Bill Street with you because I was working, but they've got all the National Guard and the feds in Memphis right now that everybody seems pretty excited about because of Memphis is what Memphis is, but it's still strange to me the people that are celebrating military in an American city, you know. I understand it's dangerous, but still you're setting up a precedent. We're not even going to talk about this much today, but the fact they're celebrating it. I read something the other day is they were talking about how many tickets they've issued since all this started. Memphis Safe or whatever Trump calls, I can't remember. But there's like 700 to 800 traffic tickets that have been issued since all this started. So basically, they're just pulling people over and giving them tickets. So they've just upped the revenue.
Yeah, and that stuff it'll slowly work its way through the courts over the next 3 to 5 years. But I actually think it connects well to this immigration debate because, and I've thought it at times. You know, you watch television and you watch the news, as I use air finger quotes, and you think, man, somebody should do something. You know, and who's going to do something other than someone that has an absolute monopoly on violence, right? So if you identify whatever the bad thing is, in this case, it's, you know, drug activity or gang violence or whatever it is in a large city, Chicago, Memphis, LA, and you just want somebody to do something. But we often forget about the unintended consequences that are going to come from you letting them do something, and generally you will let them get away with literal murder as long as the guy you like is the one doing the violence. And we see the same thing. I see the bleeding hearts on the progressive left right now who are rightfully disturbed by what they're seeing of people being rounded up by masked gangs, armed gangs. And hey, I can empathize with you on that because that's literal violence that's happening to people. But when I remind them that the ICE, the Immigrations and Custom Enforcement has existed since 2003 and has been funded more and more and more through every one of these administrations, you had this rabid dog in a cage, and all that had to happen was the wrong guy come along and open the door.
Yeah.
But you completely ignore the fact that you've helped make the dog as mean as he is.
Yeah.
And I've often said, don't ever give Republicans power you don't want Democrats to have, and don't give Democrats power you don't want Republicans to have, because at some point, the guy you don't like is going to get that power that you gave to the guy you do like. And then when he uses it, I lose some of my compassion towards your crocodile tears. Those of us that are not just brainwashed by this political cult that thinks that everything that our guy does is okay, we look at this and go, yeah, that violence is bad and it's wrong and it shouldn't happen. But then we get the whataboutism. Well, what about Biden? And what about Clinton? And what about Obama? And what about Bush? And it's like, I don't differentiate between them. I think that's the main difference between the anarchist perspective and the bootlickers is I don't see the U.S. government any different. If Walmart gets a new CEO tomorrow, it's still the same company, still got the same products, same shelves, same trucks, same distribution network. Everything about it's the same, just a different guy's in charge.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a great point too, because I saw something the other day. It was about Obama and the way he used ICE.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I wasn't aware of it. Now I was aware that Obama had no problem locking kids in cages.
Right.
We saw that when he was president. So, I mean, we know that part. But I didn't realize how much he was using ICE to do some of this stuff. And I didn't realize and I can't remember the exact number. I want to say $300 billion or $30 billion. I can't remember the exact number it's a big number. It's a very large number that he added to the budget of ICE alone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fact that people gloss over that or don't remember that makes this even worse, because now that you know that you don't care that Obama did it, but you care that Trump did it. Why is it so different that Trump's doing it? Or maybe, like you said, it's the wrong person that got his hands on it, and it's out there in the open more than maybe it wasn't exposed like Obama when Obama was president.
Well, Obama obviously didn't have the braggadocious nature. Obama wasn't having press conferences talking about the way because Trump is such a big personality and loves to brag on what he's doing. That's what they all do when they're not in power. They don't brag about their evil deeds, but Trump will. And I'm convinced that Donald Trump is the greatest politician and showman in the history of empires, because of how well he plays the media. Because he could say that he's going to do something and actually never do it, and it could be anything. But the fact that he says it and the media is so rabid when it comes to him, they'll just report that he's already done it, and then their faithful lapdogs will sit there and just lap it up and be like, "Oh, did you hear what Trump did?" And if you try to go, "Well, no, he just said that. He didn't actually do it." Well, then you're thrown into you must be on his side cage, because you can't point out whether he actually did something or didn't do it, because they just won't believe it. Once it's in their minds, they'll believe just about anything, and with absolutely no effort to actually check the media's reporting to see if it was accurate or not.
Yeah. Didn't he come out the other day and say about what's going on when they're just blowing Venezuelan boats out of the water? And he goes, "We're just going to kill people."
Yeah.
He said it so matter of fact, like, I mean, he's done it, but he did say that he has done that. So it's not one of those that, compare that to what you were just talking about. But But the fact that he could say it out loud and then there's no repercussion,
Right.
it's just, that's how absurd this is right now to me. Everything I'm watching, and you got, getting back to like the topic of like borders and immigration, you could show videos of these people dragging innocent people, by all accounts, out of their vehicles, putting zip ties around their wrists, kids as well. And they were like, well, they shouldn't be here illegally.
Right.
You know, and these are the border humpers that are saying this. These are the ones that are like, we have to have borders, otherwise we're going to have an invasion. They keep calling this an invasion. And the only time I've heard that term used is when I happened to see something off of Fox News or something. They call it an invasion.
Yeah. Well, they've got to terrify you. You know, I mean, I've crossed an international border a time or two, and my hatred of the enforcement of political borders, which, you know, I've got a little thing that I say, the enforcement of political borders and the restriction of the fundamental God-given natural human right to the freedom of travel and movement is the worst of all tyranny. And having experienced crossing borders starting in 1998 was the first time I went to Canada. I was 22, hadn't ever been anywhere. You know, I was a truck driver. And from 1998 up through, I don't know, 2003, I crossed the border with my driver's license. And it was about another 7 or 8 years. And of course, by this time, 9/11 and all this stuff, and ICE and the Department of Homeland Security had been created. Well, now I've got to have a passport to go to Canada. And I didn't have a passport. I got a little card called a fast card. And you go through a little background check. That was a joke and a nightmare in itself. I had to go to the border to do an interview to get this card, because at that time in 2011, there were really, really high paying loads that I could take to Canada. It'd be $8,000, $10,000, $11,000, you know, to go up there. So it was certainly worth whatever I was going to have to go through to get this card. And so I have to go to an interview at the border. And I go into this little room, and there's a U.S. customs officer and a Canadian customs officer, and they're asking me all these questions. And at one point, he asked me if I had a DUI, and I said, no, I've never had a DUI. And he takes his little webcam, just like I've got in front of me, and he like holds it up. He goes, "Is it your testimony today that you've never had a DUI?" And I went, "Yeah, because I've never had a DUI." Well, I'm like an idiot, because I'm thinking like a rational human being, which you can't do when you're dealing with thugs and bureaucrats. And I'm like, well, man, listen, what system are you looking at? I mean, I guess I can try to find if there's some kind of error. Don't you worry about my system. Okay, buddy. And so they just throw stuff at you. The automatic assumption is that you're a criminal, right? So I start running these loads to Canada, and most of the time I'd come back empty, which was a joke within itself, because I had to have an empty manifest. I had to fill out a piece of paper that said that the trailer was empty. And I'll never forget, in 1998, when I went up there for the first time, I go into Canada. What a beautiful place, by the way. I mean, it's just, especially Western Canada, British Columbia, it's just breathtaking. And everybody I interacted with was just very, very nice. That Canadian stereotype of they're all just really nice, pleasant people. And for the most part, they are. So I'm coming back, and I'm 22 years old, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go back to the United States. I'm going to present my American driver's license. They're going to kiss me on each cheek. Welcome back, citizen. You know, here's a little spot on the ground that we've carved off for you to bow down and kiss the ground of the land of the free and the home of the brave. No, they treated me like an absolute criminal. So I get through that, and I'm sitting waiting. There was a Canadian guy sitting beside me, and these Sikhs come in. And this was 3 years before 9/11, and they are absolutely treating these guys like human garbage. I was shocked at how poorly these Canadians were being treated. So I'm sitting here with this Canadian guy, and we're talking, And he's like, so your first time to Canada, eh? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, well, what'd you think? And I'm like, man, it's just the landscape is beautiful and the people are so nice. I said, are there any mean people in Canada? He says, oh, yeah, Americans. And I'm like, huh, okay. So, I run up into Canada a bunch of times, and each time coming back into the States, it gets a little bit worse and a little bit worse and a little bit worse. X-raying my truck. I'm surprised I wasn't strip searched. And it was so over the top and ridiculous that all we're trying to do is move goods across an imaginary line that doesn't really exist. Right? There's Canadian people and you're interacting with American people, and they're just trying to put my stuff in my trailer to get it up there. And it got to the point in about 2013, 2014 that I went, I don't care if it pays 20 grand. I'm not going back. Not because of Canada and not because of Canadians, because of these jackbooted thugs at Customs and Border Protection. I swear to God, their hiring process must be, are you an absolute psychopath? Yes. Perfect. You're hired. And I got to the point, I'm like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. I'm not going to be treated this way. Well, then COVID happens. And this thing about political borders was born really then, because I'm going to New York and Pennsylvania every week. Right. And if you listen to the news, it's just lockdown and masks and vaccines and all this stuff. And I ignored all that. Like, I didn't do any of it ever. But I'm up there every week and I'm interacting with people. And as long as we weren't at the gas station or the grocery store, all of our interactions were completely normal. Right? There was no pressure, hardly ever, about a mask or whether or not you had a shot and I thought, okay, well, what happens if you're in a place and the government or the regulatory apparatus just gets so out of control and you can't fight them? Like, you can't take up arms against them. What are you going to do? Escape. Oh, but you can't escape because there's people at the border with guns to make sure you don't get out. And so political border enforcement, for me, I just came to understand it's not about keeping the invaders out. It's about keeping you in. You're tax cattle. And if you leave and you go to another country where you could probably live as free as you do here, but if you leave, you take your tax money with you. And we can't have that. And so it is my fervent belief today, as I sit here at 49 years old, that all of this theater and all of the men in masks and the guns and the raids is to make sure that you, citizen, don't ever get the idea to try to leave. It's to make sure that you stay here. I don't think it has anything to do with safety. I don't think it has anything to do with security. They're laying it on thick in trucking right now because allegedly Obama and Biden let in all of these H-1B visa holders and let them get CDLs. And of course, California was complicit as usual. And then we had a couple of high profile crashes, one just yesterday or the day before, where some dude's drunk and never hits the brakes and runs over a bunch of cars, kills some people. They've got the dash cam. And it's like, this is the thing that gets me. Okay. I've got dash cams in all my trucks and they're cloud-based. They run through Verizon. If one of my drivers has a wreck or something happens, I get an email, right? They hard brake. I instantly get an email of what has happened, and it's all stored in the cloud. There was this famous story from a couple months ago where a guy, he was a Sikh. He goes to make a U-turn, which is just stupid, but he goes to make a U-turn on Florida Turnpike, and this minivan comes along and plows into the side of the trailer, takes the top off of the minivan, and kills all the occupants. Dude, they had the dash cam of that in like 24 hours. Like that, the whole thing stinks to me, right? And then it was probably a week or two before we found out the identity of the occupants in this minivan that ran into the trailer. And what sickened me was every person that died had a foreign last name, like a South American last name. And dude, I watched all the single-celled organisms with a shared IQ of 26 in the comment sections going, oh, well, I guess it don't matter. Like, they didn't care. The minute they figured out that the possibility that the reason that nobody was coming to claim the bodies is because they were probably illegal too, they were like, well, they had it coming. Like, that's the root. That's the real root. It's the dehumanization of someone, to me, that goes way beyond racism, goes way beyond sexism, is that if you figure out somebody was born on the wrong side of an imaginary line, you completely strip their humanity away from them and make them garbage. That to me is the really, really root part of it that disturbs me the most. And I don't know, because I haven't been overseas. I haven't personally been interacting inside a bunch of these other societies, but I don't know that we have that kind of dehumanization of people outside America, where I don't know that someone in Uzbekistan is going to go, oh, American, that person must be worth less than an animal.
Yeah. And when you talk about the borders are to keep you in, I think people fail to realize this sometimes too. If you do try to leave this country to go live in another country, they charge you thousands of dollars in tax money.
Oh yeah.
You're not free to just leave.
Oh yeah.
No, that's not, and it's I agree with you. I believe it is to keep people in. I don't believe it's necessary to keep people out, because I think they still let people in just to keep people fighting with each other. But, just the dehumanization of people is something that I'm disgusted with too.
Mm-hmm.
And you can hear the rhetoric a lot among Trump supporters. You hear Trump say it all the time, but I think, maybe I never really thought about it. Maybe it goes beyond racism. I always just kind of blamed it on racism. Like, we know Trump's a racist. He says stuff out loud that you can just tell, if you take the definition of racism, he's a racist. Now you've got his supporters that to me, some of the most disgusting human beings on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying the same thing out loud that he does. Like, he somehow invigorated them and made them more bold to come out and say some of this stuff out loud.
Yeah.
And I don't know that if it's just on social media. I don't know if you've witnessed that among people in conversations. I have not. I just see a lot of the stuff on social media when I hear people talking about other human beings. I've worked with immigrants for over 30 years. I've mentioned this on the show before. None of them behave like Trump says they're behaving.
Right.
None of them behave the way his supporters are saying they're behaving. They're not invading anything. They're coming here to learn. They're coming here to make some money and feed their families. Every one of them that I've encountered over the past 30 years. So I don't buy any of that rhetoric from any of them.
So I had such an experience. I went to the local truck stop, and I was sitting there waiting on one of my drivers to come through so I could hand him a part. And while I'm waiting, this guy walks up, knocks on my window, and he says, "Hable español." And I went, "Sorry, brother, not a chance." Right. And he starts doing sign language. And I'm like, brother, that's not going to help either. So I get my phone out of my pocket and I open the Translate app, and we start going back and forth. And I find out that they've got a little Volkswagen Beetle. They're coming from Vegas and they're going to North Carolina, and they've wrecked the car somehow. They've hit something with the front bumper. They've knocked the intercooler and the radiator out of it. And I said, he's like, well, we need to get a tow to North Carolina. So I called the local towing company, and they're like, well, we'll do it, but it's going to be $2,000. And I'm like, dude, these people don't have $2,000. Like, they don't, I can just tell, like, looks like they're living out of this car. Well, then I have a stroke of genius, and I'm like, wait a minute, I've got ChatGPT. So I opened ChatGPT and I explained to it, hey, I'm Chris. This is whatever his name was, and he's Cuban. And so ChatGPT just takes over, which was awesome. And they're just chattering back and forth. And I had to grab the phone and be like, all right, what'd y'all say? And it would explain to me. So I finally went, screw it. I'm going to go. I went and rented a U-Haul trailer. I put the bug on my trailer. I hauled it up to my buddy's shop, and I said, can you help these people? And he was like, yeah. So we figured out the parts was going to be $600. They found some way to find $600, and My buddy's shop did the work for free, and we got them back on the road. So I get them up there and I drop them off, and my buddy calls me, and he's got this old Snap-on tool truck sitting just in the lot. And he calls me and he goes, "Hey, did you tell them people they could get in the Snap-on truck?" And I said, "No." He's like, "Well, they're moving in. It's like they got their pillows and blankets and clothes he's like, I mean, it don't have any keys in it. It don't run. So they're not going to hurt anything." And I'm like, "Well, I guess that's where they're going to sleep tonight, you know?" And he goes, "Well, I reckon you can take the Cubans out of Cuba, but you can't take the Cuba out of the Cubans." and we're like, okay. So they got them fixed up the next day and covered the parts, and they went on their way, and we haven't heard anything from them. But I thought, man, what a transformative moment where I'm able to pull this device out of my pocket, where before I couldn't have had a conversation with these people. There was no chance. And nobody else would either, but because of AI and because of the smartphone, I'm able to bridge this gap across borders and cultures and languages, and we got them taken care of. It was a couple hours and $50 out of my pocket. No big deal. But I honestly believe that purging that statism and that reverence and worship of the state is what allowed me in that moment to say, here's two human beings that need help. So I'm going to help them. And that's what we did. And I called my buddy and I'm like, "Hey, I found these two people. Will you help them?" "Yeah, I'll help them. Bring them up here." Right. When we talk about this from the fundamental, and I think this is probably where, correct me if I'm wrong, Christian nation. They love to talk about Christian nation. Okay. All right. We'll talk about Christian nation. Fine. Can we talk about Jesus? Huh? John chapter 4. All right. I looked this up before the show. John chapter 4 says, now Jesus had to go through Samaria. Right. So he's in Judea. He's going to Galilee. And in order to get from Judea to Galilee, you had to go through or around Samaria. Well, the Jews hated the Samaritans so much, they would go around. They would not go through. But Jesus is like, "No, I'm going through." And he has the encounter with the Samaritan woman. He later mentions the Good Samaritan, which we literally have law, probably worldwide, called a Good Samaritan law, that if you're trying to help someone and you accidentally injure them, you can be, like if you're giving CPR and you crack a rib or whatever, you're indemnified because you're in the act of trying to help someone. And it seems like we miss the part of why the importance of the Samaritan being good. The fact that it was a good Samaritan would be like today saying the good immigrant, the good transgender, the good homosexual, the good bootlegger, the good drug dealer, whatever it is that you have determined that someone has no value, but you're in a ditch, and the drug dealer, the prostitute, the immigrant, the whoever it is, whatever group, the Democrat, the good Democrat comes along and picks you up and salves your wounds and puts you up and pays to make sure you're taken care of. That was the whole point of the story. Jesus ignored the hatred of the Jews, and he did it on purpose. He went through Samaria to say, hey, watch this. I'm not only going to refuse to go around the people you hate, I'm going to go straight to them. And I'm going to cross a border to do it. He didn't get a passport. He didn't get permission. He just started walking. So we can either A, stop calling it a Christian nation, or B, how about it start acting like Jesus?
100%. People also forget this part too. When you think about Joseph and Mary, when Jesus was a baby, and they were fleeing Herod,
yep,
because the state was looking for the babies to kill the babies, and they were fleeing, so they had to cross imaginary lines. But I point this out to Christians all the time who are in support of borders and immigration laws and caging people if they come here illegally. I said, you do understand that you would probably have Jesus's parents arrested for fleeing Herod.
100%. If Jesus was here today, Republicans and Democrats would be standing arm in arm screaming, crucify him, because he ignored the edicts of their masters. Because let's just be honest. Trump, Biden, Obama, Bush, Clinton, Reagan, those are their masters. That's their one true God, is the state. They're not interested in the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. They have absolutely no interest in that. The state has convinced them through 12 years of government school that it is their one and only Lord and Savior. You know, and if not for the government, oh my gosh, if not for OSHA, if not for the USDA, if not for the FDA, if not for the CDC, I don't believe any of that, right? I don't. There was a great quote from Brett Weinstein. He was testifying before some body, and he goes, you know, the CDC really has become a great, issuer of information. Well, all we have to do is the exact opposite of whatever it tells us. You know, if we want to be healthy, just whatever the CDC says, do the exact opposite, and you'll be fine. But when we've been conditioned our entire lives to pledge allegiance to the flag and thank the troops for their service, and it couldn't be free if it wasn't for them. The whole freedom isn't free thing drives me nuts. And because it is free. Freedom is a choice. You will exercise liberty or you won't. The minute you start asking for permission, you're not free. You're clearly demonstrating that you have exchanged your freedom for security. And that's where I've even had this weird, over the last couple of years, when people say Jesus died for me, died for my sins, I've started pushing back on that in a way because I don't like the fact that it's made about me, right? Just like thank two people for your freedom, Jesus and American soldier. And I'm going, I just have a problem with that, because if I put myself at the center of that, then it takes Jesus completing the law and kind of negates it. It to me, it weakens the sacrifice. If that's what it truly was, if it was the final sacrifice, the lamb being slain, I don't know. It's just, I haven't worked it all out yet. Probably shouldn't have said it out loud, but I did. But it's just one of those things I'm working through, because in American Western Christianity, it's all shame. It's all, well, you better get right before you get left. And I'm like, but Jesus made me right.
Yeah.
He did that. That I've been made right. All I have to do is believe. That's it. That whole chapter of John 4 is all about belief. The woman at the well believed and went and to the rest of the Samaritans, and then they went and saw him, and they were like, well, not only have you said it, we've seen it, and we believe. And then the man said, come, my child is sick. And he says, go, your child is well. And it was all about belief. I don't have to go through your 72 sermon points and make sure I've checked all of them off. I am saved because I believe, period. End of story. I don't need your permission. I don't need your blessing. I don't need you. And that's what I think is a big problem is there's always somebody that wants to get between me and Jesus and be the go-between. I'm like, I don't need you to be the go-between. It's me and him. It's a one-way deal. We got that covered. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Have a Coke and a smile.
Spice up your day with a taste so fine. Bad Roman salsa gonna blow your mind through the maze of politics where people can't see. Homemade salsa gonna make you feel free. No king but Christ living in your soul. Bad Roman salsa helps the podcast grow. Pick up your Bible, put the politics down. Support the show with everybody and salsa with us through this crazy ride. Bad Roman salsa and no king but Christ. BadRomanSalsa.com. BadRomanSalsa.com. Grab a jar, try a bite. Back to the show and back to Christ.
So I want to go back to the quote a little bit because, like I said, it's something that I've used in other conversations. I don't always get the quote right. The enforcement of political borders and the restriction of the fundamental God-given natural human right to freedom of travel and movement is the worst of all tyranny. Why do you think that this is the worst of all tyranny? What is it about restricting people's movement that makes you believe that it's the worst of all tyranny?
So if we go through the Bill of Rights, right, we've got speech, we've got defense, we've got property, enterprise, we've got freedom from unreasonable search and seizure. Like, we got these lined out. But every one of those generally can be escaped through distance, right? Let's think about Alabama, the Saudi Arabia of the United States. Well, they've got their big abortion laws. Okay, all right, fine. Y'all've got, quote, a democratic process, and y'all have decided, all right, no more abortions. Okay, I'll go to Mississippi. All right, I'll go to Tennessee. All right, I'll go to wherever. I'll go to New York. I'll go to California. Like, I can escape that tyranny. But the minute you put the wall up and you put armed guards on top of it that says, well, no. You don't have that freedom to move because we said so. Well, that to me is what makes it the worst tyranny of all. And there's an argument against Americans from people outside of America that say Americans aren't well traveled because we don't go to other countries. Well, that's true, except anybody over there that's actually been to America says, okay, but you realize in America exists just about everything that exists in Europe. Europe's just divided up into smaller countries. The United States as a country is divided up into smaller states. So I can go to the Rocky Mountains, I can ski, I can go to the beach, I can go to the desert. I can see all that without ever having to cross that particular border. So to say Americans aren't well traveled, meaning, well, they haven't experienced the heights of the Rocky Mountains or the heat of the desert. Well, we have. I can go to 4 different climates anywhere inside this country, and I don't have to have a passport to do so. So all we would have to do, I think, to fix this once and for all is put up gates at all the state borders, and tell somebody that they can't, Columbus, Ohio is 2.5 hours from me. It's the closest large metropolitan area to me. Well, put some armed guards on the US 35 bridge at Point Pleasant and say, oh, well, you have to have a passport. You can't go to that basketball game or drag race or rock concert in Columbus unless you have our permission. Then I think they would see the lunacy of it. But they don't. Americans travel across borders, sovereign borders, every day without thinking twice about it. And so in my estimation, I should be able to cross the Mexican or Canadian borders at 75 mile an hour without ever cracking the throttle, but I can't because there's somebody there that will shoot me if I try that.
Right. Okay. So you probably heard this argument before. You probably think it is as dumb as I think it is as well, but I want to address it while I've got you on the show. When you got American Christians saying, I've had them, they've said this to me, well, these rights are only for Americans. The Bill of Rights is only for Americans. But when you read stuff like what Thomas Jefferson said, it was all men are created equal.
Right.
When did that go out the window when it came to borders? And I'm not a huge constitutional historian, whatever, but I don't remember them ever talking about federal borders.
I think you can look at it the same way that you can look at the Bible. Okay. You can take the position that the Bible's a bunch of made up nonsense. Okay. I mean, you're free to do that. It's fairy tales, flying spaghetti monster, all that stuff. That's fine. But let's go to the fact, let's address it with the people that are claiming Christian nation. Well, address it from their standpoint. And I can't find anything in the New Covenant, because that's important, or in the words and actions of Jesus that justifies the existence of a multi-trillion-dollar monster that can summarily execute people. So if you say, okay, let's take the position. Well, what if the founders didn't even exist? What if they were made up? What if Thomas Jefferson wasn't a real person? Okay. Well, we have these documents. Okay. And we can look at what the documents say. All right. And then we can look at the history, and we can also look at the context. And so the context you've got to get from all the other documents that helped inform the main one, being the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Where I've gotten to is my greatest heroes today are the civil rights lawyers. There was a time in my life that I was conditioned to hate the civil rights lawyers, right? I was conditioned to believe that they were somehow bad. But now when I see people like John Bryan, he's a West Virginian who has blown up on YouTube in the last couple of years, that points out these very, very serious civil rights violations. And most of the time it's done by cops, city cops, state cops, county cops, because the documents that y'all hold so dear are handcuffs on the state, not me. There's no constitutional bounds on me. There's constitutional bounds on the president. There's constitutional bounds on the Congress, on the states, on the governors, on the city, the county health departments. They're the ones that have it outlined what they can do and what they cannot do. And so if they do something they're not supposed to do, we are supposed to be able to hold them constitutionally accountable. And of course, we got this thing called qualified immunity that we've got desperately to get rid of, where they've slowly, the old frog in the boiling water analogy, they've slowly over time come up with these nonsense codes like obstructing an officer. Well, if they can't get you for anything else, they'll just, you disobeyed a lawful order. Thomas Jefferson would roast somebody. I mean, he'd tear the skin off of them for something stupid like that. But yet the cops get away with it every day. And then the people who are, again, conditioned to believe, without cops, somebody'd blow my doors off. Well, I live in one of the most populated counties of West Virginia. It's probably fourth or fifth. Brother, we've got like 30 deputies and like 4 state troopers to cover 60,000 people. Like, that's not it. That's not the thing. There's nobody that is being prevented from kicking my door down because of the existence of like 60 or 70 people that can only do something after I call them and say, come get the body, because that's what's going to happen. I don't need to call the cops, call the coroner. So go back to Jefferson. One of the greatest things I ever listened to was Tom Wood's lecture series called Politically Incorrect Guide to American History. And I found this in 2011 or 12. And it's from the Mises Institute. Think what you want to about Tom Woods, but guy's a brainiac, and he's really good at getting his point across. And what he does here is he puts all the context in around things that were happening between, say, 1776 and 1800. And one of the most fascinating things was, I believe it was John Adams became president. And back then, the loser became the vice. So can you imagine if it had been Trump and Hillary as vice president, how we got rid of that? Because that's entertainment gold, looking for a place to happen, right? So Adams is the president. Jefferson is the vice. Adams wrote the Alien Sedition Act that basically said you couldn't talk trash about Adams. Well, you could say whatever you want about Jefferson because he's a scoundrel. But you were literally put in jail if you said anything about John Adams. Well, that's clearly a violation of the First Amendment of free speech. But it passed through the House and the Congress, and it even got past the Supreme Court. So Jefferson and Madison got together and wrote these Kentucky Kentucky and Virginia resolutions of 1798 that said it is the duty of the states to interpose between the people and the federal government when the federal government's out of bounds. Right now, it's like, oh, well, they can do whatever they want to. And if the Supreme Court says it's okay, like if they passed a law that said everybody born on the third Tuesday of March is executed on their 22nd birthday, and the Supreme Court goes, yeah, check, then it's done. You're finished, right? So Jefferson and Madison get together and say, this is unconstitutional. We can't do this. Now the states are going to have to step up. So they helped write these resolutions, got it passed in Kentucky and Virginia. But the thing I think was set to expire when Adams' term was up. So 1800, Jefferson becomes president. And this, I think, goes back to your question of how did we get there? Jefferson becomes president and immediately almost starts the first secession because he destroyed the economies of the New England states over a embargo, right? Jefferson has gotten some pissing contest with, I don't know, the French or somebody else. And he's declared an embargo. And the northern states are like, no, you're not. You're destroying our economy. That's not within your power. So I say that to say that the guy that literally wrote the Declaration of Independence almost caused the first secession of the states because the very minute he became president, he became a monster. And what was crazy about listening to this whole thing, I'm a truck driver, I ain't got nothing better to do than listen to stuff. And I would be listening to Tom Woods tell all this stuff, and I go, there's no way this is true. And then I'd open up Google and be like, oh, gosh, I'll be damned. There's a Wikipedia article about the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions of 1798 and all of the other things and all of the stuff between the Quakers and the Puritans and all of the turmoil that surrounded what was happening. It's when we turn inward. What's in it for me? The big thing that I teach in my business training is if you are not completely willing and able to put the needs of others ahead of your own, please don't start a business because you're last. You're the last person on planet Earth that's going to get paid as the owner of the business. Now, if you do it right, those are going to be big checks, but you're last. If you can't put the needs of others way ahead of your own and hope like hell that you've done a good enough job when it's all over and the smoke clears that I made enough to get to the next month. The state is so good at turning us inward and going, oh, boy, look at that guy over there. Boy, it's those people. You better watch out for those people over there. But, let us take care of you. We'll get those bad people for you. No, they won't. There's not a chance, and they never have, and they never will. All they want is your worship, your adoration, your obedience, and your unending devotion.
Yeah.
Well, I'm out on that.
Yeah. It's and I'm starting to see, maybe it's not on the scale I'd like it to be, but people kind of starting to say, well, this is not what I expected whenever I voted for Trump, which is silly to me because we already had 4 years of evidence of how Trump's going to behave. This time, he is not running for re-election, so he's much worse.
Right.
Now, but I'm hearing the likes of somebody like Joe Rogan come out and say, this is not what I was expecting when they said they were going to go from the worst to the worst, like all the gangbangers and, and the drug dealers and the cartel and all that stuff. No, they're locking up U.S. citizens.
Right.
Not that I care about U.S. citizenship. It's not, don't send me messages about that because I don't care about that either. But
right.
They're starting to say, well, I didn't vote this. And I'm thinking, but you already knew how this man was going to behave. And it's very frustrating that you endorse somebody like Trump, knowing how he behaved for 4 years, and now you act surprised that he's behaving the way he's behaving. I don't know what to say about people like that, because it's like,
right.
You want to kind of give people a little bit of grace that maybe they just don't understand everything that's going on.
What do you think about the term Cop-aganda?
I've never heard that term before.
So I think it came from, was it Caitlin Johnstone? So we've had over the last 30, 40 years, these cop shows, okay, on television. Very well done, very well acted, very well written, very entertaining, right? But what do we see there? We see them, you find yourself rooting for them to go outside the bounds of constitutional authority. We want to see them get the bad. The bad guy has been identified. And if we don't violate this guy's rights, oh gosh, somebody else could, some other kid or some other woman or some other person, we've got to beat the tar out of this guy to get the confession. We've got to break every principle of the thing that we're supposed to hold dear to get the bad guy. So this Cop-aganda that we've been conditioned with over the last few decades is, I think, what has led to this escalation of violence on behalf of the state. Number one, they know they can get away with it, because the very minute you take away qualified immunity from these cops, there's a whole lot less they're going to be willing to do, because they know they're not protected. They're going to have to stand responsible for whatever they've done to someone. So I think it's gotten to the point where, okay, you find someone illegal. Okay. Well, how about you give them a summons and say, hey, we have found you've done something wrong. Here's a summons. Here's your court date. We'll go to court. The judge will find probable cause or not. And then we'll be like, you know what? We've looked at the data, and you didn't come here legally, and you got to go. There's no need for rifles and masked men. It's not necessary. I have to deal with it. You know, I've dealt with it for 30 years in trucking. Okay, if I've done something wrong, write me a ticket. Okay? Then I'm going to go to court, and I'm going to tell the judge, or I'm going to get a lawyer to have generally what happens, you get a lawyer. The lawyer takes the prosecutor out for dinner, buys them a couple of beers, and they'll say, okay, well, we'll dismiss this charge as long as he pays the court costs. Guess how much the court costs are? The same price as the ticket.
Yeah.
They're not interested in safety, because if they were, they would not let this rogue truck driver that did whatever terrible thing I just got caught doing, they would never let that go off of my record. But I tell all my guys, if you, number one, shut your mouth. You know, if you're in a pickle, take the nickel. Shut your mouth. You don't talk without a lawyer present, and say, give me the ticket. And then you call a lawyer and you get it removed, because that's how the process, it's not about safety.
Bro.
And so this unnecessary violence, kicking people's door down in the middle of the night. Oh my gosh, the guy's got a half ounce of marijuana. Let's burn his house to the ground with him in it. You know, we've been desensitized. You know, there was, I think it was Georgia some years ago. They show up at the wrong house throwing flashbangs. Flashbang lands in a baby's crib, melts its face off. We're not responsible for that. Right. And they, to my knowledge, they've never paid that family a dime for the damage that they did to that infant by throwing a flashbang grenade into the crib at the wrong house, looking for the wrong guy. So if we would just not be so entertained by the violence, but we are. The high-speed chases. You know, we love the high-speed chases, especially in Arkansas and Georgia. They're like the kings of high-speed chases, because they'll run you up to 130 mile an hour and hook you in the right rear and send you off into the woods over shoplifting, you know. And of course, even if it was, well, what if it was kidnapping? Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's have the victim of the car be sent spiraling out of control at 130 miles an hour. That'll help them. It's just insanity, and we've just been conditioned over decades to believe that violence is okay and it's justified.
Yeah, you know, speaking of some of Cop-aganda and the shows that we've watched, I mean, I used to watch like the Law and Orders and stuff religiously. I loved them, you know. But now if I watch anything like that, I get angry.
Mm-hmm.
Like before, I was on the side of the cops, and now I'm like, no.
I loved, same guy, Dick Wolf, king of Cop-aganda, had that Chicago series. I think it was on NBC. It was Chicago Fire, Chicago Police, Chicago ER, whatever. Amazing shows, incredibly well acted. I mean, it was brilliantly written. But there was a guy, this very gravelly voiced police sergeant captain guy that would just beat the dog shit out of people. But you wanted him to do it. You knew it was wrong. You knew it was a violation of due process and rights and all that stuff, but you wanted to watch this guy just beat the brakes off of him to get him to confess or whatever it was. And that's part of that. I just went, man, I can't watch this anymore. And I pretty much, I don't know, it'd have to be 7 or 8 years. I have not watched any network television shows at all. I watched some stuff on Netflix, but maybe it's different. Maybe I'm justifying. Maybe it's a little bit different because if it's on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, I know it's fantasy, but these network TV shows and the 72 pharma ads you've got to watch in between, I don't know. There's something there that I can't. They present reality, or they present fantasy as reality, and it's the furthest thing from it.
Hey folks, we have set up a very simple way to donate to the Bad Roman Project through spotfund.com. Just go to SpotFund and search No King But Christ. Just $5 or $10 a month will go a long way in helping us keep this project going and continue spreading the very basic message of No King But Christ. So if you like what we were doing and can find it within your budget, go to spotfund.com and search No King But Christ, and you can set up monthly donations or even donate one time. Any and all donations help more than you know, and as always, any donations above production costs will go directly to charities in Memphis, Tennessee. Thank y'all so much. Now back to the show. All right, so I got maybe 2 more questions for you, and I'll let you get out of here. There's
okay.
When we're talking about immigration, calling it legal, illegal, do it the right way, come over and get your citizenship the right way. Then I'll ask the question, how do you think Jesus, and I'm not asking you this, but I'm asking this person this, how do you think Jesus would react to you caging one of his creation for crossing an imaginary line? And almost 100% of the time they will say Jesus would follow the law. I kind of expected that response from you.
I mean, there's been no greater example in human history of a radical that didn't do what he was told, that openly broke the law to their face.
Yeah.
You know what I'd love to see? I got to sidebar this, but I think that maybe we can do this. Somebody should greenlight a biopic, okay, of the story of the crucifixion, but not from the position we've always seen it. We should do it from the position of the Pharisees, okay, and make them the good guys, okay? And here's this radical troublemaker always coming in, trying to undermine their authority, undermine their control, because everything they're doing is for the people. You know, all they're trying to do is keep everybody right with God. And here comes this troublemaker, okay? And they finally get him taken care of, and they get him wiped out, and they get him killed, okay? And you got to imagine, from the minute Christ took his last breath, for 3 days, they partied like animals. There's never been a party on earth as big as the one they threw when Jesus died, until somebody walked in and said, sir, the tomb's empty. The fuck you mean it's empty? It can't be empty. We killed him. We watched it happen. We won. No, you didn't. No, you didn't win. So to me, the story of the crucifixion of Christ is the greatest repudiation of state power in the history of man, because God went, yeah, listen, I know you guys think you're powerful, but hey, watch this.
Yeah.
Coming soon from Bad Roman Productions.
That would be an interesting show to watch from their perspective.
It would be, wouldn't it?
That'd be a lot of fun. Now, what would you say to Christians who are there's even Christian anarchists that don't seem to have a problem with borders? I think some of the same people that I do that would say this. What would you say to them when it comes to this topic, when it comes to quote unquote illegal immigration, caging people for not having the right paperwork, shipping them to other countries that they've never been in before in their life, putting them in prisons in a country they've never been in their life. What would you say to them, and how you think that Jesus would respond to this?
Do you remember that movie with Matthew McConaughey, A Time to Kill?
I think so.
And it's about Samuel L. Jackson plays the guy that killed the two men that raped his little girl. And so he's on trial for murder, right? And it's very hotly divided. It's a John Grisham novel, fantastic movie. And it gets to Matthew McConaughey. Jake Brigance is the character. Jake is given his closing statement or his closing arguments in the trial. And he asked everybody to close their eyes and asked them to see the little girl laying in the creek, her body broken. And they've all got their eyes closed. And he goes, now imagine she's white. And all their eyes pop open. And they're all crying. So how about this? How about you imagine that it's your daughter, your son, your mom, your dad, your cousin, your friend from work that has been violently kidnapped by masked men whose identity, what I thought we were supposed to be able to confront our accuser. What if it was your mom? What if it was, well, mom, but shut up, stop it. What if it was your friend that they were doing this to? Gone in an instant. How would you feel about it then? It's all you can do.
Yeah, it's such a sad topic too, because I don't know. We talk about the state being theater all the time, but the stuff that we're seeing on video, we know it's not. We know it's not fake. Maybe some of it might be fake. I've seen some AI videos come out where cops are arresting ICE people, and it's just AI. It's not real and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I saw a video, and I can't remember where it was, but they were banging on the glass. They have children in the back seat, and then the dude is breaking the window and just screaming at this family inside his car.
Mm-hmm.
But he has no idea if they're illegal or not. He has no idea their circumstances. But just because they look a certain way, we're going to break their windows, scare the crap out of their kids.
Yep.
And don't tell me that that's not going to leave a mark on those children for the rest of their lives.
Oh, they're ruined forever. I mean, that's trauma.
This is how you start people on the path of being anti-state, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least, you know, we talk all the time too about like terrorists and stuff and where these terrorists come from. I'm convinced that Ron Paul was right, that the blowback.
Yep.
What they're doing right now, there's going to be blowback from it.
Oh yeah.
Somebody's going to get killed in the process who's just seeking revenge, where they've lost their family and friends and they don't care.
Right. They got nothing left to live for.
They got nothing left to lose, nothing left to live for, and so it's going to lead. You know, we get in these topics about violence and self-defense and all this other stuff, but the only thing that violence does is bring more violence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so being violent towards somebody because of the color of their skin, and I just don't know how else to explain it other than, I mean, you said it goes deeper than racism, but I mean, it's obviously racism.
Well, it's just prejudice. I mean, we all have prejudice of some sort. I mean, as a truck driver, I'll be driving down the road and I see a certain company coming. And I'm like, oh, here he comes. I've completely judged the human behind the wheel based on the name of the truck.
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll do it. Are you going to let it drive you to violence?
Right.
That's the difference.
Right.
You know, okay, well, here comes a Swift truck. I'm going to give him a wide berth, you know, because I can say, oh, it's probably somebody that's been driving for a week and a half that doesn't have yet the skill to handle this 80,000 pound truck. Probably ought to watch out. You know, at least I have some good reason for that prejudgment of that person. Kinda, sorta. But I'm not going to let somebody hit him with a missile, even though it's tempting.
Well, is there anything you want to add to this before I let you get out of here? I mean, and I don't know if we covered everything I wanted to cover. I mean, I had some more notes. The one was the quote that you use that I love so much. And would Jesus follow the law? Which is just absurd to me. The conversations that I've had with people online about this specific topic, I don't know if we're doing any good by talking about it online.
I can close with this. Okay. A friend of mine, dear friend of mine, is a pastor, and he's done mission work. He's gone to other countries, and he's a big New Covenant grace guy. Right. And he told me one day, and I just found this to be profound. He said, listen, man, if I go to Ghana, Africa, the Western message of Christianity doesn't work. We can't scare them into belief. What can you scare them with? They're already living in absolute poverty that any American couldn't even imagine. They got dirt floors and thatch roofs, but they have joy, right? That's something you'll see. They have a joy in their lives that we can't comprehend because we get our joy stolen by the DoorDash order being wrong. We literally have people to deliver McDonald's to our freaking house, but we're so spoiled that the idea of us losing our air conditioning or our cruise control or satellite radio or cell phone terrifies us to our core. And so it makes it easy for this false teaching, which is what it is. Western Reformed theology is a false teaching that has nothing to do with Christ, has only to do with, again, obedience. That's what they're after. They want you to follow their rules by their schedule, say the things they want you to do, don't say the things they don't want you to say, go the places they want you to go, and be submitted wholly to their sets of rules and regulations. Well, that doesn't work in the third world. You can't scare them out of hell. What are you going to scare them with? The only thing that can bring them to salvation is belief. That's it. That's all you got. It's the only tool you got in your toolbox. And so you have to present a completely different gospel outside of America that you do in America, because we are terrorized and terrified 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. And the only thing you can do is turn it off. You have to turn it off. You have to get out of the echo chambers. You have to be willing to say, okay, well, all right, I'm okay with there being an infrastructure around immigration, but I'm going to draw the line at masked men in guns kidnapping people in broad daylight. I'm just not going to allow that, and I'm going to call it what it is, and it's wrong.
Well, it's good stuff, my friend. I always enjoy getting to speak with you.
Anytime.
It's
always fun.
You and I have had some really interesting conversation over the past 5-6 years now, and I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon, hopefully.
Well, and let's think about what an accident that's been, right? You're from Arkansas, living in Tennessee. I'm in West Virginia. Stephen and Kayla put together that anarcho-Christian group on Facebook. For whatever negatives a new technology has, which they all have some negative, the fact that we've been able to connect and come together and learn from one another. We've all been challenged since that 6 or 7 years ago that we found each other through the anarcho-Christian group. My views have radically changed. And I think that's what we should probably hang on to. If you're still believing the same stuff that your granddaddy believed 75 years ago, probably need to challenge yourself, because there's things I believe today that I would have wholly rejected 5 years ago. And there's things that I wholly reject now that I thought was the absolute truth. So if you're not challenging yourself, which means being willing to look at a person in authority, be it a pastor or a teacher or a politician, and go, yeah, but what if they're lying to me? Or what if they're wrong? Because I'm the one that has to answer to it. The only person I'm ever going to answer to is myself. I'm going to be responsible for the decisions that I make. So I better make sure that I'm not being led astray by someone who has an agenda of control.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day about where I came from. I had her on the show. We haven't released it yet, but the fact that I know where I was 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever, or even further back than that, 20 years ago, if I can come out of that way of thinking, I believe anybody can.
Yep, 100%.
And I think that was a good point you made, because we got to be able to hold on to that, because if somebody like me can do that, I feel like anybody can do it.
Oh yeah, you're one of the most bullheaded, stubborn people I've ever met.
That's like the pot calling the kettle black, isn't it?
Okay, well, yeah, there's something like that. Pots and kettles are involved.
It's
certainly.
me, Craig. It's me, Craig, you're talking to. So, I'm well aware about, we're both pretty stubborn. I know I'm
Right.
stubborn, but so are you. It's
Right.
but I think you have to be. And I think that stubbornness actually kind of helps with the way we change the way we're thinking. Like, all right, we let go of some stuff. Now I'm going to be stubborn about this, because what I do know, what I believed before was wrong. I don't have it all figured out now, but I do believe if I just stay close to the teachings of Christ, that I've got a pretty good chance of getting everything right.
Absolutely.
Hopefully. Well, why don't you go and plug anything you want to plug, and I'll let you get out of here.
Blue Ribbon Podcast, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. That's what we do. We try to teach. We give people an opportunity to learn how to do business well, because if you do business wrong, it will destroy your life. And ours is obviously trucking specific, but it transcends to all other industries. Work ethic, customer service, risk management. Take care of your customers, and they'll take care of you.
Yeah. And I love that you have such a unique perspective on some of this stuff, because you are able to travel for work, and you've seen probably all corners of the country. Yep. And other countries. So I think you bring a unique perspective to this. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about it. Plus, I love your quote so much about that. I don't always quote it correctly, but I do like what you say about it, because I think that the natural right to be able to move freely is God-given.
Yep.
And because the state says it's not,
too bad.
I don't care what the state says. And we need to start looking at this the way Jesus does.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Bad Roman Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcasts to never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, it really helps people find us. 100% of donations are given to local charities in Memphis, Tennessee. To learn more about the Bad Roman Project and to find show notes, please visit thebadroman.com.